Isabel Hilton. She is the editor of China Dialogue. Thanks so much for being with us. Has Hong Kong, as we've known it, for so many years, effectively been lost? Is it now just another Chinese city?
It's certainly heading that way. Hong Kong, as we have known it, is over. That's gone. It'll take a few years for it to become exactly like a Chinese city, but essentially the Chinese plan is to integrate Hong Kong into the ecosystem, the financial system, and the industrial system of the Pearl River Delta, and to reduce its democratic aspirations to a lookalike of mainland democracy, which is marked by elections with only one candidate, if elections are held at all, pre-screening. So you say to people, yes, you can vote, but you can only vote for people that I've already pre-screened. This is not democracy that convinces anybody.
And so it leaves, it renders the opposition basically useless. And you have to wonder how much harder they could really fight up against the power of Beijing. So would you expect kind of a mass exodus? We've already seen a lot of people leave Hong Kong. Do you think there'll be significantly more?
I would anticipate that a lot of people, if people can't find a legitimate and law-abiding outlet for disagreement, and that's what's being closed off in Hong Kong through this. If you look back to those enormous demonstrations of 20% of the entire population on the streets in an overwhelmingly orderly fashion, long occupations of central Hong Kong, with people, cleaning up their rubbish and students doing their homework, that you couldn't have a more law-abiding and civic-minded people than you have in Hong Kong. And if China can't find a way for those people to express their political views, if there's no legitimate channel, then I think certainly the young people will feel that there really isn't much future. There was already a lot of pessimism amongst young people in surveys in the last few years, and this is not going to help.
Right. China arguably had two very strong factors in its favor when this was all happening in Hong Kong. One was that most of the world was really consumed with the pandemic, or was starting to be, and their economies were tanking. So the last thing on their mind was trying to pressure Beijing to change its policy on China. And the fact that China can argue, at worst, it's just cut 25 years off an agreement it had with a colonial power anyway. So was there anything really the international community could do to stop this? And are they going to change their relationship with China as a result?
Well, this is the perennial discussion now that, China is a powerful economic player, obviously. But it's also, I think, that China's far more assertive policy in the last 5 or 6 years has led us to a prolonged confrontation with the United States. And clearly, President Trump had his own singular views, but you will have observed that in the transition to President Biden, who is a man who believes in cooperation, negotiation, and the reasonable conduct of international affairs, the sense that there is a systemic confrontation between the United States and China over values has not gone away. And I really don't think that this is in China's long-term interest any more than it is in the long-term interest of a healthy polity not to find legitimate avenues for dissent and discussion.
Since you know the territory so well, I'm going to ask you this question. For those pro-Beijing Hong Kongers, including, Carrie Lam, what was Hong Kong actually lacking for them to want to bring in these changes? I mean, at least usher them in much sooner than would have been under the treaty. You had a city that really had the best of both worlds, and now you want to turn it over to just one power. Why do they feel that way?
I don't think that the impetus for this came from Carrie Lam. It's important to remember that people like Carrie Lam are essentially there by virtue of having Beijing's support and backing. They're put there to do Beijing's will. And I don't have the impression that Carrie Lam drafted this legislation, though she will certainly support it.
Why does she support it is what I'm asking. Why do they want this to happen?
Because they do what Beijing once, and she was exposed after the local elections in Hong Kong at the end of 2019. This was after a year of demonstrations when Carrie Lam was arguing to anyone who would listen that the bulk of Hong Kong's silent majority, supported an authoritarian response to those demonstrations. Then come the local elections, which are the most democratic elections. It really is a one person, one vote in Hong Kong, and it was overwhelmingly in support of the democratic opposition. So she was exposed as, you know, somebody who really didn't have the support of her people. So the worry then was that the upcoming legislative elections, which are far more important and you know actually have power, might reflect that vote in the district elections. So first they postponed them, and now they've changed the electoral system in order not to be faced with the expression of the people's will, which would have gone against Carrie Lam.
Okay, Isabel Hilton, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us.